Hi everybody. What we're going to be doing in this video is continuing our lesson with significant figures, and now we're going to be adding and subtracting sig figs and seeing how we get the answers for this. So whenever you start adding and subtracting sig figs, it seems confusing at first. It might look confusing at first, but with some practice it'll get a lot easier over time. Now there is a rule for adding and subtracting sig figs. The rule is the final answer should be rounded to the same number of decimal places as the measurement with the least number of decimal places. It sounds like a lot, but again, once you see it, it'll make a lot more sense. So let's look at an example. What we're going to do is take in our first one 12.01 plus 35.2. Now, when you go to find the number of sig figs or the number of decimal places in the final answer, make sure that you do all of the math first. So when you plug this into the calculator, you get an answer of 47.21. But now we have to make sure we have the proper number of decimal places. And we have to see how many decimal places each piece of the problem had originally. What I mean by that, in this first one, 12.01, there are 2 decimal places. In the second part here, at 35.2, we only have 1 decimal place. And our answer, our final answer, has to have the same number of decimal places as the measurement with the least number of decimal places, which would be right here at 35.2. So we know our final answer can't have more than 1 decimal place in it. What we're going to do then is take right here at 1 decimal place and round the final answer. To round it, we're going to look right past it at the number, and we see that it's a 1. 1 doesn't do anything, it just rounds it down, leaves it the same. So the final answer is 47.2. Let's do another example. We're going to take 123.25 plus 46. When you plug it in the calculator, you get an answer of 169.25. Now we have to make sure we have the proper number of decimal places in the final answer. In the first number here, we have 2 decimal places. In the second number here, we actually have 0 decimal places. So the least number of decimal places is 0, which means our final answer can have no decimal places. So we're going to be rounding right before the decimal place at the 9. We look after the 9 and we see a 2. This 2 means it rounds down, and our final answer is 169. Now let's look at an example with subtraction. We're going to take 505 minus 450.55. Plug this into the calculator and you get an answer of 54.45. Now we have to make sure we have the proper number of decimal places in the final answer. In the first number, we have 0 decimal places. I accidentally picked Christmas colors. In this second example here, in the second number, I should say, we have 2 decimal places. So based on the least number of decimal places, it's going to be right here at 0 decimal places. Meaning, again, we're going to round right before the decimal place. We look right after and we see it's a 4. 4 is going to round down, which means our final answer is going to be 54. I'll do another subtraction here. We're going to take 55.46 minus 28.9. When you go through and do the math, you get an answer of 26.56. Whoops. When we look at the number of decimal places, our first number here had 2 decimal places. Our second number over here, it only had 1 decimal place. So the least number of decimal places is going to be right here at 28.9 with 1, meaning we're going to be rounding right here at the 5. When we look right after the 5, we get a 6, and anything 5 or above makes a number round up. So the final answer is going to be 26.6. Now, when you're working with adding and subtracting numbers and looking for sig figs and adding and subtracting sig figs, it doesn't always have to be done with just 2 numbers. It could be 3, 4, 5, as many as you want, but you gotta follow the same rules. For example, we're gonna take 0.15 plus 1.15 plus 2.051. When you plug that into the calculator, you get an answer of 3.351. Looking at the number of decimal places here, we have 2 decimal places. Here we have 2 decimal places. And here we have 3 decimal places. Now, both of these numbers have 2, which is the least number of decimal places. They match. So the least number of decimal places our final answer can have is 2. So we're going to be rounding right here at the 5. We look after the 5 and we see it's a 1. So we know it just rounds down, and the final answer comes out to be 3.35. So this is how you are going to be working with adding and subtracting sig figs. Hopefully this video helps you out some in understanding it. The more you practice it, the more you do this, the easier it's going to become over time. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Please feel free to reach out to me. Have a wonderful day, everybody.